finding your partner that's going to get you to heaven is the most important part of that journey.
And it just like opened my eyes, like, oh my gosh. Like it put into question this so-called, oh, is there the one?
Turning that pain into purpose, and without a test, you won't have a testimony.
Very, very passionate about the fact that like 30 is not a death wish.
A lot of people are believing different lies.
If you start to get into like, I need to see everything, then you're not going to be able to pick anything.
Hey everybody, and welcome back to Intentional Dating. Today we're talking to matchmaker Madigan Maere and Brendan McCauley. So Madigan is a Catholic matchmaker. She works in this professionally. And Brendan is the co-founder and the president of the Humanum Project. Thank you both so much for being here. Could you both tell us just a little bit more about yourselves for our audience?
My name is Matchmaker Madigan. I am a professional Catholic matchmaker. Similar to Allie, I focus on Catholics just across the country, which is great. And I'm very excited to be on here with you today. I'm a new wife, and so I want this vocation for everyone as well, which is such a gift. And so, yeah, such a pleasure. And I've had the opportunity to work with Brendan for the last couple of months on a project. So Brendan, yeah, tell everyone about yourself as well.
So a little bit about me, I grew up in Olympia, Washington. I'm now currently in Miami, Florida. So
Miami.
Quite the difference.
Yeah.
Love it.
That's right. I'm learning my Spanish. I still got a lot of work to do. What took me here is I'm actually Dean of Mission Formation at an all-boys prep school as well. And so I've been doing that now for a year, but my cousin and I, we started Humanum Project a few years back. And the main reason why we started this was a teaching when I was 21 years old changed my life. And the teaching was really immersing myself into God's plan for life and love. What is the biblical vision of what it means to be human? And I began speaking all around the country on this when it comes to questions on dating, on love, on sexuality and marriage. And so I've been doing that for the past 7-8 years now. And now I guess I'm in Miami. So.
Oh, I love that.
Very
well,
cool.
Truly welcome to both of you. Yeah, Madigan, you're the very first matchmaker, aside from me, that we are having on the podcast. But yeah, we're so excited to hear both of your takes on everything. Right now, what are you guys hearing in society, Madigan, with the men and women that you're matchmaking? What is the most common complaint that you're getting? And Brendan, like, what are you hearing from the young men and the young people that you're ministering to?
We just finished up Fresh Start, which was, something that we collaborated on last year. And in the last month of January, I had over 90 calls with people who are single and who are looking for love. And it was a really beautiful experience to hear. Part of it becomes the brokenness, right? You hear their stories of what their dating histories look like. You hear how the apps seem to be something that everyone's kind of half invested in, but having really awful experiences in with ghosting and these sorts of things. But the heart of all these people is that they want love and they want to find their person. And so it becomes this really beautiful moment where you get to kind of walk with them in that and hold their stories and hold their hope, right? And then take that and try and figure out how you can work with them in a way that's a little bit more practical or tangible than a dating app might be. So I'm experiencing a lot of hearing what the brokenness has been, and then just still seeing people who are looking for that level of hope to kind of continue moving forward. So that's a lot of what I'm seeing. There's also age and all of the things when you're on dating apps of hearing preferences and all that and trying to figure out what really matters, I think is another thing that I've seen a lot of. Brendan, I'm curious your take on this.
Yeah, a lot of people honestly are just asking what do I need to do? And I think a lot of people are believing different lies about themselves, oh, I'm single because I'm not good enough. So much bigger of an issue. Culturally, socially, economically, it's such a bigger issue of why there aren't as many marriages as there used to be, or why people aren't dating to discern marriage. It's so much of a bigger issue. And it's not hey, there's something wrong with you. But I think a lot of people are curious, what do I need to do in order to find a good person?
Brendan, what is the advice that you're currently giving to folks who approach you and say, what do I need to do to be somebody who's dateable, somebody who others can love? You know what I mean? What's the advice that you give to them?
The first thing I say is, one, being single there's a lot of gifts that you have when you're single, the amount of time that you have, the amount of freedom that you have. First thing I say is, are you becoming the best version of yourself? Thank you, Matthew Kelly, for coining that term. That includes your prayer life, your interior life. Are you striving for virtue to become excellent in all things? Are you working on your health and your fitness? If you're answering yes to all of those things, okay, are you putting yourself in places where you can meet people, good environments, wholesome, healthy environments? You're saying yes to that. Yes. Okay. Do you have trusted family and your friends who are helping, giving you advice? Yes, yes. Okay. Keep going. Like, that's been my journey. And I have a good priest friend who he'll just keep telling me, because I've asked that question. I'm 29 years old, a single man, and he just keeps telling me, Brendan, keep doing what you're doing. Keep going. Yeah. And it's not to the pain that I might feel or the ache I might feel. It's not to just repress it or try to, get it out of my life. No, it is painful. But what are you going to do with that pain? What I've learned through entering that pain, surrendering that pain to God, I've grown a lot. And it's just trusting in that process.
Exactly. Talk about, God's plan. You're on a podcast with two of the top matchmakers in the world, add a third.
And Nick is here too,
Yeah. Yeah.
I matchmake, just not professionally.
Nick does. He does. He's a number. But yeah. I love that idea, though, of like turning that pain into purpose. And without a test, you won't have a testimony. Like if you just were, and especially with your voice and any single men and women that are really going through it right now, remember that, you can't have a testimony if you do not have a test. So for a lot of people, this is a part of their ultimate testimony of meeting their spouse and really having to take a look in the mirror and encounter self and be in that single season, in that season of desolation, and where is my person?
So I do love this concept of seeing singlehood, seeing your single season or single seasons, depending on how life goes, seeing that as preparation, a time to prepare to become the spouse that your future spouse needs. However, I wonder if how pressure plays into this. Should pressure be applied in certain areas of your life to help you become the person you're supposed to be, the spouse you're supposed to be? Or if pressure is kind of a bad concept, something that we should get rid of? I wonder how what role pressure plays in all of this.
Yeah, I think, I'm just thinking of my grandma. When I call my grandma every few weeks, my grandma's in her 80s, she'll, Brendan, you meeting some women? You surrounding yourself with good, friends and community? We need pressure. There's an unhealthy pressure, I think, and there's a healthy pressure. And especially what we do with that, because, when my grandma telling me, hey, are you getting involved? Are you meeting people? I can receive that and like, oh, is there something wrong with me? I'm not doing what I'm supposed to be doing. And now you're just living out of fear. That's an unhealthy way to take pressure. But is it something that's calling me on to something more? I think we do need pressure. I think there can be two sides, and I've gotten into this where, don't pressure Brendan, and he's just comfortable where he's at. He's content where he's at. You do you be you. Well, now you're just too comfortable in your singleness.
Right,
like the example you used, Brendan, I think is a good one. I mean, we most of us can relate to, oh yes, grandma or one of our aunts or one of our uncles or a trusted family member who genuinely wants what's good for us. We'll keep asking us, hey, have you found that girl? If or whatever. But I wonder if there is. I wonder what bad pressure looks like. What too much pressure looks like. Is there an unhealthy amount of pressure?
There can be an unhealthy pressure of your clock's ticking, get on the move. Yeah. And then some people might be entering into relationships that aren't really healthy, aren't really stemming from freedom. And now they're in a relationship and maybe they're going to be marrying a person out of fear. And so that example is, I think, unhealthy.
Yeah, definitely. And I feel like I see it a lot with young people that especially are in the communities that we're talking about, like the Christian communities, where the intention is good, right? The intention is, we want to have people getting married and starting families and really building that family system, which is such a beautiful thing. But I completely agree. And there is the flip side of that where people rush into marriages without really knowing the person. Madigan, how do you feel about this as a matchmaker? Do you feel like the clients that are coming to you have this sense of pressure from society, from self, from family? How do you feel? What are you seeing?
A lot of the times it's women, I feel it a lot more strongly because women, have this biological time clock, which I am very, very passionate about the fact that like 30 is not a death wish and like you can still have kids for quite some time. And we need to stop with all of that in like this Christian space, right? And when you go down to it, right, it's actually treating someone as an object and not as the beautiful gift that they are. And so I think that we have a tendency to want to fall into that because we create this pressure, right? And I think, the women that I talk to, you know, their deepest desire of their heart would be to be married with kids. But unfortunately, Prince Charming didn't come along because we know traditionally like men mature later, and that's just fact, right? And so they're kind of waiting for their right person to come. And in the meantime, they became invested in their community, invested in their career. And so once they do reach a certain point, they are coming to me and feeling a lot of this pressure that you then have to remind them like, A, you didn't stop becoming good. You became great. Like the more that you are getting closer to God, praise God, right? And so I think we have to kind of rewire the pressure that's existing around this idea of children. That is primarily where I see it, because the reality is like when you enter into this beautiful sacrament, right? You know, you just don't know what the Lord has in store for you, and trusting that is the most important part. Like finding your partner that's going to get you to heaven is the most important part of that journey, first and foremost. And so, I just think I do see the pressure all the time, and you got to tell some people like your goodness did not disappear at an age, and it never will. And that's just the beauty of what you have to like remember.
Totally. And have you heard of the release prayer? So it's like, God, if this person is for me, then keep him in my life. But if this person is not for me, please remove this person from my life. I feel like this is very big in more of the Christian communities.
That's a good prayer.
But at the same time, I feel like there is so much of that pressure that can keep a woman or a man in a relationship that God is kind of like trying to remove out of your life. So that's definitely something that I've seen. But then once they release it and then they enter into that place of singleness again, and then they kind of rebuild and then they reestablish, okay, now I've learned what I'm actually looking for, what I'm not looking for. I think it's just such a beautiful place to be.
So there's clearly a balance to be had when it comes to pressure. Some is good, too much is bad. I wonder what the balance is here between God's timing versus our own efforts.
The discussions that I've had, like the dating apps feel like they're trying to control the timing, right? They truly are like, I'm going to put this in my own hands and I'm going to figure out what I'm doing. But it's this idea, right? That like you can have the right person and your timing cannot be the right time, right? You can try to be forced something, or it can be the right person, right time. And the opportunity just doesn't exist because you're not open to the right person, right? I think we can all have experiences where we'd say, the person that we would have dated 10 years ago is not the person that we would date now, right?
Oh, absolutely.
And so,
absolutely.
So like you've got to, like Ali had mentioned, like you have to adjust your expectations. And so trusting the Lord is truly having a sense of openness without trying to like, I'm going to make sure that like my deck is stacked. There's no way I'm missing anyone. I think that's the bigger thing is like, if you start to get into like, I need to see everything, then you're not going to be able to pick anything. And so if we're not going to look at the people God is putting in front of us with a very intentional, like beautiful open lens, then like we're going to continually find ourselves like truly being way more in control than we need to be.
Yeah.
Madigan described the paradox of choice. It's so true.
Yeah.
And absolutely. What do you think about that, Brendan?
I think like there's Augustine of Hippo, an early Christian, awesome Christian. He said, pray as if everything depended on God, but work as if everything depended on you. And so we can't be sitting around just like, oh, like God's going to put someone in my life at some point and I'll just be chilling on the couch Friday, Saturday, Sunday night. It's like, no, get up. You got to work. You got to put in the work as if everything depended on on you. And you know what you were saying earlier about this paradox of choice and freedom and our free will. I'll never forget sitting in a class with my professor during my master's studies, and he said something that just hit me. He said, you know, God might call you to marry that person, but that person with their own free will might say no and reject God's will. And it just like opened my eyes, like, oh my gosh, like it put into question this so-called, oh, is there the one? God writes with our crooked line. He writes straight with our crooked lines. And so God's will might be that you meet this person tonight, but through our own free will and circumstance and sinfulness, we might not say yes and consent to God's will for our life, but he will always bring about a greater good in the future. And so we got to just trust in that.
In my practice and in matchmaking, I'm sure, Madigan, you can relate to this. We get a lot of people that are almost like obsessed with this concept that they're like, well, the one. And I, having done this for now almost 14 years, I do see that people really pick the one. How do you know if somebody is the one? They have a strong sense of integrity. They share values. You have shared values. You want to raise your family. You want to raise your kids in a godly way. You know, what are these elements that this person is bringing to the table that you can kind of look and say, oh, wow, that's how I know that this is the one, versus God is going to put a butterfly over this person and something mystical will happen. I hate that phrase, and I hate the when you know, even though I know a lot of people are like, well, that's true. When you know. I think it's like when you're ready, you're ready. And when you do sense and when you can see that this person has and shares the values.
It's a blend of both. It is a blend of both. I think there is a slight element of chance or happenstance or something that you could say, wow, God put this person in my life at the exact right time that I needed them, or you know, that little spark, that moment. But I think so much of this is the prep work of singlehood. I mean, in my own life, in my own leading up to my own marriage, I went through a phase of serial dating, just dating one girl after another, and the same result happened every time. You know, it failed spectacularly. And after a while, I realized, okay, I'm the common denominator in all of this. I'm probably the reason why these relationships keep failing, because I'm the one in all of these relationships, these unsuccessful relationships. And so I intentionally took a time in my mid-20s, several years actually, of just intentionally not dating. I said, I need to do a lot of work on myself. I need to get in touch with, I need to understand who I am. I need to deepen my spiritual life, and that will be an amazing way to better understand myself as well. And after I went through that period, when I came out at the end of it, and I knew I was coming out at the end of it because I felt it. I felt, oh boy, I'm a changed person compared to where I was in previous relationships. I feel like I'm ready to go out and date again and to see what happens. And actually, within just a couple months of coming out of that phase intentionally, I actually found my wife. This going back to the idea of singlehood as a time of preparation, I think is essential. I think we need to lean into that a little bit more. So I think it is both in this question. It is both a little bit of chance, a little bit of God's timing, and also the prep work that we do.
Where preparation meets opportunity.
There you go.
Can I add like a glory story with this for anyone out there who's losing hope? Because the Lord put it on my heart randomly to own an RV. And if you think I look like an RV girl, that is not me. I will never forget, he told me to go own an RV and go to the National Eucharistic Congress, like go do the whole trek and everything. It was the weirdest thing I'd ever been told in my life. I was fully confident I was going to do this. That weekend, I went to a honky tonk and I danced with a guy, and I found out he owned an RV repair service. And I was like, what are the odds? I need your business card, right? Like, whatever. A year later, almost to the day, I was at a bar with another guy, like on a date with another guy. And this guy comes up to me and he says, did you work at Disneyland? I thought it was a cheesy pickup line. No. I said, no, but you look like a guy from Guitars and Cadillacs who owns an RV repair service and gave me your business card. Fun fact, that is my now husband.
Oh my gosh, wow.
So I'm on a date with another guy, sit up at the bar, come to find out that in the last year, he lost 50 pounds and came back to Christianity. Like, he just was not ready.
Wow.
And so, there is glory in, like, trusting the Lord, because I the RV, like, again, weirdest thing I've ever been told to do in my life.
Wow.
And I, like, now I'm dating like an RV repair service guy, right? So like, just to give that hope of like that preparation, the Lord, when you are ready, like he will bring that person, just like you were saying, Nick, like he will grant you like your heart's desire, like when you have put in the work to be ready.
Going back to what Brendan was saying about you just go practice talking to people. Just talk to people in the real world. Because seriously, you had a random conversation at a bar, you know, and that led to something. You know, that's not typical advice that I would give to people trying to find a spouse, you know, but it worked because it's like, yeah, we just don't know where things will lead. But that openness to letting God work through us, work in our lives, and doing the prep work to make sure that we're somebody who, you know, is dateable, somebody who is ready to get married or meet somebody who could potentially become your spouse.
Yeah.
So it's both of these.
As a matchmaker, you know I love bringing people together, especially when everyone tells me how hard it is to meet someone.
That's why we love SacredSpark, a new app for Catholic singles to meet people who truly value their faith and are serious about a lasting relationship.
SacredSpark not only sends you curated matches, but also allows you to join the app as a matchmaker. So whether you're looking for love or looking to utilize your matchmaking skills, SacredSpark offers a whole new way to find genuine connection.
The app combines the convenience of online dating with the value of community support. So instead of swiping alone, you've got your friends looking out for you too.
So if you're single or know a friend who's ready to meet the love of their life, download SacredSpark, start connecting, and change the world, one relationship at a time. Okay, so Brendan, this is kind of more specifically for you because I feel like you're our expert on theology of the body and just this is your thing. Why are we so drawn to wanting a really strong physical connection? Because I don't necessarily think it's something we should be shamed for, but at the same time, it can't outweigh that emotional connection, right?
You're exactly right. So John Paul II, who brought this theology of the body, what it means to be human, to the light, he talks about how that physical beauty, it matters because we are a unity of body and soul. We're embodied spirits. So when we're attracted to the body of a person, it's good. Now, if we're divorcing it from them as a person, now we're in the context of lust. Lust reduces our vision to parts. So it's not love, it's anti-love. The body needs to be integrated into the person and become personal. So through getting to know a person, it will illuminate their body in a proper way. It helps us to see them properly. So the physical beauty, John Paul II also talks about how it's the raw material of love. Our passions that get our body excited is a good thing, but it needs to be integrated in proper love and willing the good of the other person. But it's the raw material. It's the start. We need that. Now, something that when I am dating a person, you know, after a handful of dates, you know, picture yourself 50 years old with this person, 70 years old with this person. I have done that and it immediately is like, oh, like, no, it's not there.
Yeah.
Now, okay, that could be jumping ahead, but through that question, I can know if I'm just going on dates with this person just because, gosh, I feel good. They're super attractive. They're cool. They're fun. But the most important John Paul II brings to light in the theology of the body is not just the value of the body, but the value of the person. Yeah, do they share the same values of you? Are they striving to become the better version of themselves? Sanctity, heaven. Is it a person that would help get your kids to heaven as well? You know, that's the personal value. But you also got to have fun with this person. Like, you got to have a ton of fun. I remember, again, this priest friend of mine, he's like, Brendan, you can spiritualize things a lot. Go on a date and just have fun. Don't even talk about faith. Just have fun. Can you laugh with them? All right. That's the friendship. That's love of friendship, which is needed for romantic love. So you need all of it. You need all of it, but you have to integrate it into the person who's unique and unrepeatable and irreplaceable. And if you're really attracted to the person, if you share common values with that person, you can have fun with them. They're your best friend. All right. get married. You know,
Yeah.
Go get married.
And honestly, I mean, that's illuminating. And it also sounds a lot like what Madigan does through her matchmaking.
Great setup there, Brendan. I think that we as a society have become hot or not because of the dating apps. We look at humans and decide their goodness based on their looks. And I've done it because I've been on the dating apps, right? It just becomes this thing where you're like, am I even going to get to know this person based on their looks? And the reality is, like, I am a soul, you are a soul, we are all souls. Like Nick, Allie, Brendan, like there are things that I could not know about you by looking at you, right? And it's this beautiful gift that I get to like learn who you are as a human first. So I focus on conversational chemistry first. What that means on a practical level is prior to you ever seeing a photo, you actually have to have a phone conversation. Do they think like you do? Do you enjoy talking with them? Laughter, like you mentioned, like these are the values that are going to carry us all of those years. Now, I always say physical attraction is important. JP2 says it best, but like there's this beauty and like we have the ability to know someone on a very honest level. That's like, who are you? What makes you excited? Like, what's your favorite flavor of ice cream and like why, right? Like getting to know people on a human level is the thing that we're forgetting to do because we've become so inundated with these looks. It truly becomes dangerous. Like it is a like really awful form of use that like we just need to call to mind. Like Brendan mentioned, and like the reality is like you are like body and soul, and we have stopped looking enough at the soul in dating and it's too much on the body. And like if we don't course correct, like we're going to continue to have no marriages, less kids, like all of these things that we all deep down want, but we don't know how to practically like in a practical way, like practice, right? Like how do we actively get to know someone and trust that, like Brendan said at the beginning, you may not find them to be the most attractive man. I will tell you right now, I thought my husband looked like my father. Ew. But like, right? Like he had a mustache and a mullet. That is not happening for me. But like now I'm a mustache mullet girly. But like that didn't exist without me sitting to say like, who are you as a human first? Yes. And like realizing that like he worked hard, he loved Jesus, and like all of those things mattered way more than like my first initial attraction to him. Like,
yes.
Totally.
And will take us the 50 years that we're all trying to get to.
Yes. Oh, I love that, Madigan. I feel like for women, it is a lot easier to allow that attraction to grow. But the guys, they're like, oh, I just wasn't attracted.
So I'm going to just speak about my experience.
Yes.
Okay.
Yep.
I could be wrong here. And I'm totally fine saying if I'm wrong here. But every girl that I have fallen for, the first, second date, like it's just there. And you know, a lot of, you know, some of my family members are close friends, you know, through my time of singleness. Brendan, you're being too picky. You're being too picky. And, you know, I'm listening to them. And so I might meet, you know, someone in the Catholic community that, you know, people are like, hey, you should get to know her. She's really great. And, you know, initially I'm like, oh, she's cute. She's cute. Ask her out. And on the first date, there's a part of me that's like, and, you know, but I'll be like, you know what? I go on the second, but in the back of my mind, it was just like, it's not going to work. It's not going to work. And I'll tell you this, it's not like I'm always holding that on. I do my best to just like kind of reject that voice. But my experience, those don't work out. Now that's my experience. You know, my cousin, he got married about a year ago, and his did take a little bit of time. You know, it wasn't like on the first, second, or third date. It took a handful of dates, and then also just through their dating relationship where maybe, you know, the feelings, being in love, that began to develop. But that's just my experience.
Yeah, for all of the relationships I've been in, one successful, all the others unsuccessful. but for all the unsuccessful ones and the successful one, from the beginning, physical attraction was the first thing. That was the first, by far, that was the first thing that drew me to the person. I mean, and I think it might be a male-female thing, where it's weighed so heavily, like for guys. We find women gorgeous, and that is the thing that draws us at the very beginning. at least in my experience and from what I've seen from so many other guys. But yes, looks are the first thing that draw us in. And for me, that was usually the thing that kept me there in the unsuccessful relationships. When I first saw my wife, what drew me to her immediately was, wow, she's gorgeous. That was the first thing. And then after one conversation, I was like, oh, wow, like looks and like personality and brains and all of these things. Wow, that's amazing. And then later on, after our first date, I was like, I'm all in on this person, which is like that might be too much too soon. But I do believe that, at least in my case, it was one of those if you know, you know kind of things.
Yeah.
We got engaged within 6 months. But I think that the physical attractiveness is the thing that draws guys in from the beginning. And if you feel like the other things are not lining up as you go on more dates with somebody, if it's just physical attraction after a while, like what Brendan was saying, yeah, it's probably not it. It's probably not it.
You know, people will ask me like, Brendan, do you have a type?
You?
Like,
You have
if
two
I'm honest, I'd
matchmakers
say
right
like, yeah, like,
Okay.
yes. Now, I don't try to be very sure. Oh, she's got to be blonde. She's got to have blue eyes. She got to be this height. No, I'm not that strict. But is there these kinds of women, how they look attracts me? Yeah.
One of the things that I'll say that I feel like I've had the gift to experience is that you get to decide whether or not you want to see a photo. And I never actually share that information with my clients. So you can actually request a photo. Wow. I've actually had a lot of men who've been going on blind dates recently. Like they actually enjoyed the conversation enough that taking a woman out mattered to them. I want to be very clear. I do think physical attraction matters. Like, again, and I think to Brendan's point, it can feel like it either is or it isn't. Mm-hmm. Let's think about like our parents, right? Their options were 1 in like 30 people, like whoever their friends knew, like those were the options that like they were used to, right? Well, if now we're used to having a million options, it becomes easier to kind of say like, if I'm not physically attracted to you quickly, like I can move on. And then I think there's also the question of like, how much have we become so used to physical attraction due to like other things that have desensitized us, right? Brendan's saying, right, like he has a type. Like I can tell you like my type right now, number 1 was Catholic. If you did not hit that check mark, we were not even talking. Like the discussion was over for me, right? And like that, but that doesn't mean all these things. I can tell you what my type is not. It's my husband originally, but like because I know it can change and I know that it has changed for men as well, right? It's just something that like what do you want to be leading with? And like the other fun thing that I think Allie probably says sometimes is like, if your type isn't working, just wanted to throw out there, like your type may not be working, right? And so like, that's when like being open to new things, I think can be vastly important. I'm not saying, Brennan, do not be attracted to your wife. Like, please don't hear me wrong on that. I will find you the most beautiful woman if you'll let me, but just throwing it out there.
But there's also something to be said. We had a client that I thought he had one specific type and one specific type only. And we did a thing called a bachelor dinner because it wasn't working. And I was like, what is going on? So I then went to this bachelor dinner with him so I could observe. And I planted his perfect type. And then I planted 3 of basically, they were bachelorettes, but my girlfriends. And I know one of them is very warm and engaging. And the other one's a bit more cold and kind of that tough love girl. And so different personality types, very specific personality types. And I found out, and I saw it happen in real time, his physical type, she was a little flustered when she first got there. So she met him and she was like, not really, she didn't really look him in the eye. She wasn't really anything. She was just like, oh, nice to meet you. Oh, I parked at the valet. Is that okay? So there I saw immediately within that first 5 seconds, I saw him turn off. I saw him think like, oh, like kind of get his defensive on. But then once we were seated and then the lovely friend that total opposite. Like his type was like blonde and all American looking. This girl, total opposite. She was Asian, stunning, dark hair, you know, all of this. She walks in, super relaxed, super lovely, warm. Hi, it's so lovely to meet you. And I just saw him flutter. I saw the attraction going. So I think it's also an important element to pin here that it's the energy that somebody's coming in with.
Right.
And I think that sometimes men can't verbalize that. They're like, she's hot or she's not hot or whatever it is. And that's not, and not that you said that. You did not say that. You were very eloquent. But I think that for women, it's not a death sentence if you are not, the perfect type of this man. It's just coming in with being warm and engaging. And that is the most attractive thing to a man. A majority of the time. Some guys like the cool girl, the too cool for school girly. But I think it's that energy that the guys can't necessarily pinpoint, right?
I think that's
Am I
real.
right?
And yes, and I think that's something that dating apps can't replicate. That's something that you only get in person. Like quite honestly, in my own experience, I don't think I would have married my wife if I hadn't met her in person first encounter. Like the first time I ever saw her and talked to her. If it hadn't been in person, I don't know if it would have been there because, the dating apps, they are confusing and they can lead us astray. You know what I mean? It's that physical energy I think is so critical.
But you
critical.
can also bring that energy. I think that if you can be very specific with what you're looking for, if it's Christian, if it's Jewish, and then you put that on your profile and you date very intentionally on the dating apps, I think I've seen so many successes in 14 years. They're beautiful. However you can meet a person, there's no bad way. That's my philosophy. Yep. But I think that if a woman can come in also with that energy of every meeting, you're coming in, your mind is clear, your goal is to connect. And when we tell a woman to do that, all of the men want second dates. And when we tell a man to connect when he's first meeting the woman and, give her a compliment, say, oh my gosh, you're like, wow, your hair looks amazing, or what a beautiful dress. There are ways that we can show up on dates that heighten the chances of that physical attraction being there because it is so combined, physical and emotional. Anyway, I tangent.
Yeah, Brandon,
right?
The more you're talking, the more I'm agreeing with you. The energy. And I love the word energy because what I'm thinking, I've been reflecting on my type, the physical. But what I'm most attracted to in a woman is her confidence that she knows who she is. It's so easy to know if that woman's insecure, she's just looking for attention versus, wow, that woman just knows who she is. Yeah. That is very attractive. Yeah. The other thing, and this just might be a me thing, but a woman who can make me laugh, that right there, I'm sold. I'm sold.
Yeah. A woman who knows who she is and is interested in who you are. Oh,
yeah, if she's not,
Lord.
That's not a good deal.
Yeah. So we've talked a lot about pressures, and we've talked a lot about, now physical attraction and whatnot, and what role that plays in, early on in a relationship and then later in a relationship, of course. But are there other unhealthy motivators for getting into a relationship?
Yeah. So I almost got married. I ended up breaking up with her after 7 months. And after this, I went through some difficult times in my life. I ended up going to counseling for a year. And it was a fantastic counselor. And we were talking about my dating lifestyle and my motives for dating. And he called me out, and it was so good. But he said this. He's like, Brendan, what I'm seeing throughout your dating experience is you've had a lot of rejection. And there might be a lie that you're believing about yourself of that you're not wanted. And he was kind of pulling pieces out of this last dating relationship where I almost got married. And he said, I don't want to pinpoint that this is the exact diagnosis, but Brendan, you may have had so much consolation because she was filling that woundedness. And then he said to me, he's like, but brother, it's not her job to fill your wounds. It wouldn't be okay, he says, to enter marriage as an insecure boy looking for her to tell you who you are. You're called to be a secure man first who knows his identity as a beloved son of the Father, who then can freely give of himself. And so one unhealthy motive is you're placing your identity, your deepest identity in the woman, or for woman, in the man. And it's almost like if I'm not dating, or if I'm not in a relationship, I'm just dying inside and I don't know who I am. First, your identity as a beloved son, beloved daughter of the Father. Being grounded in that, secure enough in that you can then date freely. I also see in a lot of men just kind of reaching for it and desperate and needy, and women find that very unattractive. A guy who is needy. Yeah, so that's been my experience. What about you, Madigan?
I think that one of the unhealthy things is that like people believe that it's like it's a deserved thing. Like it's not a gift from the Lord. It's like a required thing that he gives you. And so you kind of enter into this mentality of like, this is mine for the taking, rather than like this beautiful, like, I am open to when the Lord brings it. Kind of like we talked about timing earlier. Similar to Brendan, which I did not know that we shared this, but I decided during the pandemic to date a man, get engaged, and then call off an engagement because I believe that at 25, like you were required to do that, or I was never going to be able to have that love. So similar to Brendan as well, like that if I don't find it by a certain time, I'm only going to get the broken, I'm only going to get these things. And when you believe those lies, you affirm the enemy and you take away God's ability to work. And that's the most dangerous thing that like we can do. And so I think it becomes this, like when we look inward and not look outward with like open arms, it's like we're looking inward to like protect ourselves. Like it really will be our most dangerous thing, that like we become very unhealthy.
The sense of identity. It is you should not seek to be loved by the other first. You should seek to be loved by the Father first. And from there, he will help you to become the person who should be loved in a marriage. Wow. Yeah. Grounding yourself in Christ first. I think that's essential to remember.
Yeah.
Wow. It'll help with attachment. That's for sure.
No, it's so true. And thank you guys both for sharing that. I too was, I broke off a.
Am I the only one here who's like was only engaged once?
Yeah.
No, I mean mine. I've had this situation unfortunately happen twice where they had their rings. I know, especially for me, it was just so much pressure of, all of my girlfriends were in a space where they were all getting engaged. This was the first time. My first time around, they were all getting engaged, and I saw these major red flags, and I was like, oh my God. I said, oh, it's fine. It's fine. Like it's it's fine. It's not a huge deal, but it actually was ultimately, and it was probably one of the hardest things that I had to do to end that relationship, because it was not going to lead in for my best good. So I completely agree with you guys. I think those unhealthy motivators, when that's the unhealthy pressure of, oh, well, all of your friends are getting engaged, and exactly, you're 25 and you feel like, okay, this is the time. This is my timeline. Everything's lining up. But yeah, it's very difficult to walk away from something like that.
Certainly.
Yeah.
Well, as we're nearing the end of our time here, Brendan and Madigan, I wonder if the last question I could ask of you both is, on a positive note, hopefully, what should singles be doing right now to embrace this time of singlehood? What should they be doing to prepare to become the spouse that they're meant to be?
Examine your life. What parts of your life, whether that's career and stability, whether that's passions and hobbies, whether that's your holiness and your prayer life, whether that's your intellectual life and reading, look at your life and begin to work on those things slowly. Yeah. The second thing I would recommend or advise is examine your motives for dating. Like what we just talked about. Are you dating out of fear? Oh, I'm getting this old now. I'm getting this old, and I'm just going to start dating. What are your motives? For me, something that I'm realizing in my life that has been unhealthy is I've been on Hinge, and I'm Catholic, and so first it's Catholic, and then I've gone through Catholics. I'm going to just now Christian, and then maybe you start to be more open when you realize, wait, what do I want? What do I want?
Right.
And for me, I realized if I want to marry this kind of woman, I need to be putting myself in places that will help me to meet that person. Yeah. And so that was something I had to make a plan and then implement that plan. So what is it, for the viewers, become the best version of yourself, but secondly, examine your motives for dating and begin to make a plan to work on that.
I'll add with that. There are two things as I've kind of prepared for marriage now. Finally made it. But the one of the things that I thought was helpful is someone told me that the reality of like who you choose, right, as you're preparing, as you're dating, is that that person will either be the reason you get into heaven quickly or it takes you forever to get there, right? And so like we don't want to be entering into these relationships where we're trying to like fix the other person so much that we become an awful person ourselves and then delay heaven, right? Like that's the most, or risk heaven, right? Like, and I remember someone told me that when I was early discerning, actually just got out and was early discerning my now relationship. And I remember thinking like, I need to remember that like dating doesn't need to be this like crazy thing. It can be like these simple little ways that we choose each other every single day. And then the other thing that I learned from my now husband that I thought was really helpful is like early on in our relationship, he said he had this box of things that were him, right? Like, so for him, it was like his motorcycle and playing video games with friends and all of these things, right? So I had to think about like, same thing. What were my things? What did I hold in my box? He said, once we started dating, I had to literally empty my box and ask you what was in yours. Like, are we getting into these relationships where we're willing to ask ourselves, hey, like what's in Allie's box? I need to ask a man, right? What's in Nick's box that I would be willing to like take on because I care for someone? So like, how are we preparing for marriage in a way that's like going to lead you to heaven and not away from it? Like, and have that be kind of a simple, unromanticized thing. And then also like, are you preparing to like suffer in the right ways? Because like marriage is a gift of self. It is not this thing that like becomes for you. It's for the other person.
Yes. Yep.
I know Lord of the Rings is definitely in Nick's box.
Are you willing, right?
Thankfully,
like, are you
my
willing?
wife is also a little bit of a nerd. So,
Does she speak Elvish? What is that?
she speaks Dwarvish.
Oh yeah, okay. That was for you. That was a deal breaker.
Sorry, that was a joke
That
for
was
that
a
was a joke for
deal
Kathleen
breaker.
because she's short. I love my wife so much, but she is
dead.
short.
Oh, bless her. That's so precious.
Those Brendan and Madigan,
Guys.
that was wonderful to hear, especially those words at the end. They really resonated with me, and I'm not looking for a relationship. But it was a reminder to me, even a married person, a reminder that a relationship, like you don't just like. Once you get to the altar, that's not where it ends. That's not like, oh, successful, done. My goodness, that's where it starts.
Yeah.
And so all of your singlehood and all of your dating is preparation to get to that place, but the journey continues. And these are principles that anyone could use in their relationships or in their singlehood to develop themselves, to become better, to become closer to God. This has been a wonderful conversation. Thank you both so much for your time.
Thank you guys so much.
Thank
So
you.
lovely to have you.
Yes. Thank you
Thank
so much,
you.
guys. And we'll talk to you soon. Take care.
Bye.
Hi, friends.